of...
He repeatedly froze and defrosted human beings, making the price for the knowledge far too high.
Imagine them trying to turn you into Sub-Zero in real life. They like, yo, we're going to freeze you, then we're going to unfreeze you, then we're going to freeze you again, try this new thing, okay? You might lose a finger, it's cool, because as long as you make it to the second test, that's all that matters. We got a video on, what was this, room unit 731 or something like that? The military went too far with these disturbing experiments. Now, U.S. government, this is clearly an animation. I'm not accusing y'all of anything. Okay? I'm watching the video. If y'all want to take it up with anybody, simple history, go talk to them. Okay? I'm just watching the vid.
Horrifying military medical experiments. Although the military...
Oh, I haven't watched the new Attack on Titan, though. We're going to watch that, but let's get into it.
...is loath to admit it, they have been at the forefront of some of the worst and most unethical human experimentation in history. A lot of this has been covered up and expunged, but multiple militaries across the world, sanctioned by their own governments, have performed some truly heinous acts against other human beings. Nazi Germany's Joseph Mengele.
Boy, I heard of this. Like, a lot of times they teach you about that thing that mustache man did, and they teach you only one part of it. They only teach you about the camp and that stuff. They didn't teach you what they was doing with the people who didn't make it to those houses with the smoke in them. Okay, now I looked it up. Boy.
During World War II in the Nazi concentration camp Auschwitz in Poland, there was a Nazi doctor who performed horrifying experiments on the Jewish prisoners. His name was Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was better known as the Angel of Death. Mengele's particular obsession was performing experiments on twins. Everything he did was performed on unwilling and unable to consent participants and was 100% unethical and deeply disturbing. The exact number of his victims is unknown, and to this day believed to be underestimated. As well as his propensity for twins, Mengele performed most of his experiments on children, targeting Jewish and Roma children in particular, many of whom did not survive their treatment. But some of those who did spoke out about what they had experienced. One of whom was a twin named Eva Moses Kor, who was just 9 when she and her twin...
Hello, friends just said Attack on Titan's mid. You're done. You know what I'm saying? Hold this band, big fella.
...sister were separated from their family and sent to Mengele at Auschwitz. Once there, the twins were stripped, their hair shaved, and they were tattooed with registration numbers. Even at Auschwitz, Mengele's work was top secret, and they were completely separated from the other prisoners. Eva spoke about the other twins she saw and the horrifying fates they suffered. According to her account, Mengele's research could be split into 2 parts, genetics and germ warfare. For the germ research, he would inject one twin with a deadly disease and monitor its progression. If the child died, their twin would be killed so they could both be autopsied, or more accurately, dissected. And
see, this is, boy, I heard like that they was in there seeing how much G-force the human body could sustain so they could build airplanes. It's a nasty world out here, man.
The results compared. Other experiments included cross-transfusions of blood and multiple experiments on their lower bodies and organs, such as connecting a urinary tract of one young girl to her colon. One of Mengele's most horrific experiments was his attempt to make his own version of Siamese twins by connecting 2 victims' internal organs to each other. As well as Eva, there are many.
Now he was out here creating the human centipede.
The breadth and depth of Mengele's experiments are too extensive to mention them all. Another child, Ephraim Reichenberg, who was 17 at the time, was mistaken for a twin with his older brother and spoke of experiments performed on their vocal cords by Mengele and his team. And Jonah Laux, who spoke of painful injections she suffered to her spine as well as being operated on by Mengele. According to Laux, his research would be sent to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, where he would, disgustingly, be paid well for these reports. These are just a few of the horrific reports of what the poor children of Auschwitz experienced under Mengele's orders. But Joseph Mengele was not the only Nazi to perform unethical medical experiments. Others included Klaus Schilling and George Schaltenbrand, and their research was widespread and varied. including atrocities like forced eugenic sterilization and castration.
Why?
Men like Schilling were thankfully brought to court at the Nuremberg trials after the war, although, incredibly, he asked to continue his experiments in volunteers. But Mengele fled, escaping the Allied forces.
Yo, imagine being called to world court and they're like, yo, big fella, you've been doing some bad things to some humans, and we don't like that. And he's like, but I'm getting some scientific breakthroughs. Is it possible if I could just put a couple of more humans under these circumstances? What?
And so, he will forever remain in history as the Angel of Death, the Nazi doctor who was never brought to justice.
And he escaped?
Unit 731 and Biological Warfare. Unit 731 was a secret division of the Japanese military.
You said, let's be honest, his research was likely used afterwards and other. Of course, bruh. Of course. Now, like I said, America, this is a cartoon, okay? I am not putting any allegations on your name. But I'm going to stop right there and keep watching this video.
Stationed in Manchuria during the 1930s and 40s. The unit performed human experimentation and tested acts of biological warfare on prisoners and civilians. It was commanded by a man named Ishii Shiro, who used his position to encourage military interest in biological warfare. When the war ended, most of the documentation on the unit was destroyed, and the true horrors of the experiments conducted only properly started to emerge decades later. But it's believed that thousands upon thousands lost their lives in Unit 731 in the name of advancing biological warfare. Largely, the unit used Chinese citizens as their guinea pigs, and like Mengele, those who succumbed under the studies had their bodies dissected and autopsied to analyze the effects of their experiments. What occurred at Unit 731 includes some of the worst atrocities in history. These are just some of the things we know took place. Live dissection of victims without any anesthesia. Intentional infection with a plethora of diseases, including the plague, cholera, and tuberculosis. Death by experimental weapons like high-altitude bombs, intended to be filled with deadly gases like anthrax,
See, I told
clouds
y'all,
that disperse lethal bacteria, and intentional exposure to frostbite. Famously, it is the last experiment that has actually proven to be useful in the medical community, as Ishii's team
on the ride, you can watch it
discovered
on
the
both.
best treatment for frozen limbs is to soak them in water at 37 degrees Celsius. To discover this,
That's
however,
slightly above.
he repeatedly froze and
No, that's-
defrosted human beings, making the price for the knowledge far too high.
Imagine them trying to turn you into Sub-Zero in real life. They like, yo, we're going to freeze you, then we're going to unfreeze you, then we're going to freeze you again, try this new thing, okay? You might lose a finger, it's cool, because as long as you make it to the second test, that's all that matters.
The work Unit 731 did was dehumanizing, and it's clear that they did not see their subjects as human at all. In fact, historian Sheldon Harris claimed they referred to their subjects as monkeys or Manchurian monkeys. Historian Sheldon Harris claimed they referred to their subjects as monkeys or Manchurian monkeys and other similar animal names. Few survived the horrors of the
I feel like that's like a running stigma throughout the world. Why do they pick that animal out of all the other ones? I just want to know.
Research program. Even now, Unit 731 remains relatively unknown. Unlike the experiments of the Nazis, which were exposed after the war, the unit in Japan did not receive the same treatment. Incredibly, a lot of the Japanese researchers escaped punishment altogether, including General Ishii Shiro, who received immunity from prosecution for himself and his men. In fact, horrifyingly, a lot was done to cover up the truth of what had happened there, in no small part thanks to the U.S., who expunged a lot of documentation in exchange for receiving the results of some of
United States, I said this is a cartoon. I have nothing to do with this, okay? I'm just watching. My chat brought it to me. I'm examining. That's it, all right? If they whatever they do with this information is up to them.
the medical experimentation that took place. To this day, it's unknown just what research the U.S. claimed from the Japanese as part of this agreement.
True. And what else did they gain? They said, listen, we need your video games. We need your anime. What else come from Japan? You know what I'm saying? Not a lot of people. Boy. I try to tell people, the more you know about the world, the scarier it becomes, until you realize listen, there's things going on out of your control. You just got to stay in your lane.
U.S. experimentation during the Cold War.
Oh, this is MK Ultra?
On September 28, 1994,
Now we about to learn about?
The United States General Accounting Office released a report written by the Assistant Comptroller General, Frank C. Conahan, that revealed some of the dark and disturbing experiments performed by the U.S. military.
This
during
looked like
the Cold
that mansion in Final Fantasy VII?
The Department of Defense and other national security agencies were responsible for the undertaking of extensive radiological, chemical, and biological research programs. Many of the experiments had their true purposes concealed, and as a result, the hundreds of thousands who took part in them were unable to give fully informed consent. They suffered injuries, health issues, and some even died. The scope of the experiments is also deeply horrifying. Over 200 radiation tests have been performed on over 210,000 participants, and a further 199,000 were exposed. In other studies, chemical tests were sent out to...
You said the documents from the Japanese were given to the U.S. and a doctor from Japan was released for his crimes. He faced no punishment. Like I said, this is a cartoon.
Universities, hospitals, and research facilities to be used on uninformed healthy adults, psychiatric patients, and prisoners alike. Records show that this included the testing of chemical weaponry like mustard agents, the catalysts of the deadly mustard gas bombs used in the previous world wars. Beyond that, participants were also exposed to nerve agents and their antidotes, given psychochemicals to analyze their effects, and trialed the effects of long-term LSD use. Some of these tests were conducted by the CIA, and not the military specifically, including the more renowned MK Ultra project where the LSD testing took place. However, it is clear that the government as a whole was involved in these experiments during the Cold War, and the military certainly played a part.
Who are these people
in
these experiments?
Humanity has wrought on
United
each other
States?
across the centuries. But those conducted by military officials like Mengele, Ishii, and the U.S. government in times of war are particularly disturbing.
Yo, what channel did we stumble across? Boy, I've been watching infographics. You know what I'm saying? I mess with infographics. This one, though, we going to have to, that sub button. Hold on, we're going to have to like the video, too. Listen, hold on. These are extremely disturbing parts of history, but they must be remembered. True. The scariest part of this is that people are capable of horrors like this are, for the most part, indistinguishable from the rest of... Boy. This is why I stay in the house. I might play a little bit of basketball, go to the gym. They're going to have to do some work to get me in these experiments, okay? Listen. Y'all let me know what video we should watch next, all right? Now, if y'all see the CIA, FBI, government officials break into my house, please just make sure the channel gets to 1 million views. That's all I ask.